Max Holloway had arguably the best performance of his entire career at UFC 300 and gave us one of the, if not the greatest moments in combat sports history. So now he's the BMF champion and everybody's assuming that he's also going to get the 145 strap back. But unfortunately, Ilia Topuria is still the better fighter and he is going to beat Max Holloway. Now, I understand the hype around Max Holloway is at its all-time peak right now, and rightfully so. He's looking like he's hitting his prime right now. We all thought his prime was when he was the featherweight champion, but he's only 32 years old. He may be hitting his peak right now. But sometimes you see a fighter that is on the rise and you realize immediately that this is a generational talent, and that is exactly what we are seeing with Ilia Topuria. MMA fans probably have the shortest memory span of any sports fan base I've ever seen in my life. Let's not forget that it was only a couple months ago that Ilia Topuria knocked out Alexander Volkanovski cold. That is arguably a top 5 fighter of all time. And let's also not forget that Max Holloway is 0-3 against Alexander Volkanovski. I may have him as 1-2, but officially he's 0-3. Now, I already know what everybody's going to say. They're going to say, did you not see Ilia Topuria after Max Holloway's call out? He looked terrified. It is 2024. We need to stop overreacting to the body language of these fighters. If you really think that Ilia Topuria, champion of the world who just took out a top 5 fighter of all time, a guy Max Holloway couldn't beat, was scared over a call out, you are out of your mind. What people need to realize is to get to this level of fighter, to be at the top of the world, to be a champion of the UFC, you pretty much have to be delusional about your abilities. All these guys think they could beat anyone in the world at any time, every single time. And Ilia Topuria, as well as Max Holloway, are no exception to that rule. Ilia Topuria was excited when he got called out. I don't care how his face looked. He was not scared by a call out from Max Holloway. Now that we have that out of the way, we need to look at how Max Holloway and Ilia Topuria match up stylistically. And I hate to tell you guys, but Ilia Topuria is better everywhere. Ilia Topuria, without a doubt in my mind, is a better grappler than Max Holloway. He's getting submissions all the time and actively using his grappling, unlike Max Holloway, who pretty much never uses it. And Ilia Topuria is also the better striker. He clearly has a lot more power in his hands. It's not even close. I think he's more technical. I think he has better head movement, and I think he's more accurate as well. Max Holloway has 3 things going for him in this fight: his chin, his cardio, and his experience and fight IQ. But those 3 things are great intangibles to have when fighters are completely even, and I do not think that is the case here. I think Ilia Topuria is just a superior fighter. What makes Ilia Topuria so great is not just his power, because there are a lot of guys in the UFC who have power similar to Ilia Topuria, like a Josh Emmett. Josh Emmett has just as much, if not more, power than Ilia Topuria, but what separates the two? Why is Ilia Topuria better on the feet? It's his ability to access and find moments to use that power. If I magically got the power of Francis Ngannou, I still wouldn't be the UFC champion because I don't have the fighting skills to find the moments to use that power on my opponent. Ilia Topuria was even being outstruck in both rounds by Alexander Volkanovski, but he did not seem worried at all because he knew he was bound to find that shot eventually, and he did. And to be fair, Max Holloway also found his shots against Alexander Volkanovski, especially in that second fight where he dropped him twice, but the difference was he just doesn't have the same power behind his hands that Topuria did. Now, I think Max Holloway is going to do a good job in the first 1 or 2 rounds, kind of pitter-patter, point scoring, getting good shots on Ilia Topuria, but nothing too dangerous or anything really threatening to Ilia Topuria. And Ilia Topuria, similar to how we all talk about Peter Yan, is going to be downloading all that information and knowing how to get the shot on Max Holloway. But let's say, hypothetically, I am overestimating Ilia Topuria's striking by a long shot and Max Holloway proves to be the better striker. I still think Ilia Topuria has a good shot of winning this. Now, I know this is going to catch people by surprise because of how many all-time greats Max Holloway has fought and how long he's been fighting, but with the exception of Charles Oliveira, where that fight doesn't even count, Charles got hurt with some weird injury in the first round, Max Holloway has never faced a truly elite grappler in his entire career. And sure, Ilia Topuria may not be an S-tier grappler like a Charles Oliveira or an Islam Makhachev, but I really believe he may not be that far off. Ilia Topuria is 15-0 with 13 finishes. How many people realize that 8 of those 13 finishes were by submission and not knockout? He hasn't shown it as much in the UFC as he did prior to his UFC career, but the majority of his wins come through grappling and submissions. The final point I want to make here is when you watch this Max Holloway versus Ilia Topuria fight, I guarantee you will see a difference in the speed of strikes between the two, and Ilia Topuria will look clearly faster out there. I encourage you to go back and watch the third fight between Alexander Volkanovski and Max Holloway. Volkanovski had one of the greatest performances in UFC history, and he was just simply too fast. He even yelled it at Max Holloway in the middle of the fight, saying, "I'm too quick for you." And then after that, I want you to go and watch Ilia Topuria versus Alexander Volkanovski, where the speed difference wasn't too noticeable, but Topuria was the faster guy, and that's what led him to getting the knockout. So Topuria is going to look faster in there, and I think if you take that into account, that he's faster, and he's got more power, and he's a better grappler, I just don't see where Max Max Holloway wins here. So for all those reasons, I think that Ilia Topuria, despite what all the fans want, will unfortunately defeat Max Holloway, and I think it will be relatively decisive as well. So if you made it to the end of this video, thank you. This is my first video. Let me know any suggestions in the comments, like, subscribe, all of that. Have a good one.